This episode is dedicated to the Lighthouse, an initiative partnered by the NSPCC. Did you know that 1 in 20 children in the UK are sexually abused, and 1/3 of those will never tell, even into adulthood? The Lighthouse is a centre in Camden in London that is a one-stop shop for sexually abused children. Historically, children have been dragged around medical practitioners, the police, and social services, having to tell their story time and again and rehash their trauma. In this centre, all the services come to the child. Here they can testify on camera rather than appearing in court, and at the Lighthouse, therapy is also on hand. The Rebuilding Childhoods Board, chaired by my guest David Tate, is one of 4 boards that partners with the NSPCC, and they raise money and awareness for the Lighthouse and other projects. David's aim is for there to be 30 such centres around the UK. Currently, there is only 1. To find out more or to donate, go to www.nspcc.org.uk and look at the show notes for more details. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Bandwidth Conversations, a podcast that finds out about the stories and journeys of artists, performers, and rock stars of life. My guest today has had a profound and positive impact on my family's harmony, unity, and well-being. As a family, we have great times together, and we can also drive each other up the wall. When things are falling apart, quoting my guest today can often provide the touch of humour, a shared laugh that can soften a standoff moment or just brighten an already happy one. So imagine my joy when I spotted my guest a few people behind me as I was snaking my way in a queue towards passport control at Nice Airport. I felt compelled to tell him how he brightened our days and that my daughter and I had already booked tickets to see his stand-up show. He was incredibly gracious and even agreed to be on this podcast. Never have I been so happy to queue to have my passport checked. So who is he? He is the new comic star to watch for. He's an actor, a writer, a TikToker who has amassed 1.3 million followers and rising from providing point-of-view sketches, ranging from public schoolgirl Minty to the creepy teacher, who's my personal favourite, actually, the Soho House member to takeoffs of other actors and films like Harry Potter and Love Actually. His observational humour is hilarious and uncomfortably close to the truth. Right now, he is in the middle of his Just Literally tour of the UK and Ireland. My 2 daughters and I went to see him at the Alexandra Palace Theatre at the weekend. It was an hour and a half of laugh out loud magic. I am so delighted, and my children are so jealous that I get to talk today to Henry Rowley. So Henry, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. What a beautiful intro. I think that's the best intro I've ever had.
Well, that's good. Well, it's all true. And what a triumph of a show. We adored it. And my daughter, Anna, went to Bristol University, and she's a couple of years behind you, I think. So when we had the Minty nightclub sketch, she was like, oh, that is exactly how it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, she said Bristol was full of Minties.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's where Minty comes from. It's all of my friends I made at uni. Yeah.
And then there's George's mum, who I identify with, but not completely. And then you had Stephen Bartlett. Exactly. But before we go into those characters, I'd like to go right back to your upbringing. You grew up in Leicester. Your father's a GP. Your mum is a therapist. So what kind of child were you?
I was an angry child. Not angry, but I had a short temper. As a real young child, I had a really short temper. And then I think it was puberty. It just went. I just lost all of that. And now I just don't get angry at anything, really. Nothing really pisses me off. But I think I was a very expressive out there child. Quite naughty, but more cheeky chappy rather than problem child at school, I think. I would get away with a lot because it was just staying on the right side of teachers' patience and stuff like that. But very much always trying to perform.
Okay.
Very, very, still am, you know. Yes, for attention and validation. Yeah.
Because your observational sketches are so spot on, I wondered whether you might have been on the periphery observing stuff.
I think I've always watched people. For example, at a young age, my parents went through some stuff. And I think when you're a young age and you see your mum and dad who are superheroes, when you see them fragile and vulnerable, it breaks down the idea of them knowing everything and being invincible. And you suddenly see them as real people. And you realize like, oh, they were also just struggling through life as everyone else is. And I think that for me was, I remember seeing it and it was really profound, and it sort of changed the way looking at everyone, and you suddenly watch for subtle things. And I think that's something I've then carried through, is every single person. I don't know why I always like to imagine them, what they were like when they were younger, or what they're like with their friends. Like even if someone just walking down the street, imagine like how do they laugh? How do they drink a beer or whatever? Definitely always watched people quite closely in a non-creepy way.
Yeah. You started to act quite early, and not just at school. You performed at the Curve Theatre in Leicester, and that was an Inspector Calls, and you were 10 or 11?
Yes, yeah.
So how did that happen?
It was quite funny. My parents were just arguing in the house, and I was singing a lot, and I think it was probably just pissing them off. And so they were like, "Oh, you need to perform," when it was really like, "Piss off, you're annoying." And so they carted me off to Stagecoach at the weekends, which was this sort of acting, dancing, and singing group. I very quickly realized that I could not sing, but I realized in acting that I was quite good at it. And one day, this opportunity came to play an extra role in an Inspector Calls. It was a non-speaking role, but it was that first experience of live theatre. It started this appetite for it and hunger, which then never went away. So yeah, they came into Stagecoach and we just each auditioned as this thing, and I got it. And it was incredible. It was the most incredible thing. I did another play at the Curve after that as well.
Did you then carry on at school as well with your acting, doing school plays?
Yes, yeah. So I did a few drama groups outside of school. And then at school, drama was my thing. That was my subject. And so I was in all the school plays. It was really fun. I really took to it. And I remember I always wanted the lead, and I was never getting the lead until my final year. It was a great play. I think Alan Ayckbourn, called A Small Family Business. And I essentially played a Basil Fawlty character. Doing that for me, for the comedic side of it, I was like, oh, I think I've got a thing here of playing these comedic characters. I mean, maybe I don't, but I enjoyed it a lot.
You definitely do. And then I think I'm right in saying that you then thought you liked it enough to think about drama school. And your father said that the sensible thing would be for you to go to university before you set along that path. And you were viewed as a posh boy in Leicester, and then you went to Bristol, and there was a whole other level of posh that you hadn't encountered. And my daughter, as I said, she was at Bristol too. And she was there during that whole COVID piece. And so she ended up not really having the best experience. But how did you enjoy your time at Bristol?
I had the most amazing time. I think the deal with Dad was, it was a 2-year discussion, and he was like, get involved in drama at Bristol. And I went. There was a couple of years, I think there was a little bit of bitterness. Felt like the acting thing was slipping away, and I wanted to blame Dad a little bit. But looking back, I think it was absolutely the right decision. And, you know, it's the age-old thing. It's always like, oh, no, you've always got to pursue your dreams and stuff, and you should. But sometimes there's different ways of going about it, because I think what Mum and Dad knew was I needed to go to uni and have the uni experience. And that was when I really came out of my shell and became myself. Because I think Bristol, whilst it is a cesspit, if you like, of the upper class, sort of boys in Chelsea tops from Eton with mullets, it's a very loving and open city. And it is a place where you abandon your prerequisite judgments you may come with. I think it was a really wonderful experience. I became friends with people from all different walks of life and just became more myself than ever. I had the most incredible time.
You became a marketing executive. So what exactly were you doing?
I started in sales, actually, because I just wanted to go to London. It was sort of straight on to the next thing. I was like, I want to be in London. And I thought sales was just chatting to people, taking them out for dinner and shaking hands and then making loads of money. And I didn't realize how much organization is behind it and how it's actually a very admin heavy job. To make it entertaining, I was coming up with really creative ways to try and attract the interest of these CEOs and stuff. It was a small startup called Sideways 6, and it was the most incredible company culture. Really good vibe. I wept like a baby when I left.
Did you?
Yeah, I really cried because I was there for 3 years. It was really well run, wonderful people. It was a place I really enjoyed working. The CMO saw me doing all of these creative outreaches, and he was there like, you're a marketer, you're not a salesman. And so I was put on furlough during COVID, which at the time I saw as this big tragic thing. And my ex was like, so you're getting paid to not work? I was like, yeah, legally I'm not allowed to work. And I was like, oh no, this is the most amazing thing. So yeah, then went into marketing and just doing all sorts because it was a startup. Me and Chris ran all of the marketing operations, and Chris is still to this day one of my best friends.
What was the startup?
Oh, so it was called Sideways Six. It was an employee ideas company. So it's a way of big tech companies or any companies. If an employee on the ground has an idea of how the business can be more efficient, it's a way of getting that idea heard by the CEOs.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a really cool idea and it was really nice. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention any names, but you just say you work with a construction company and you see like Gary on the ground has this great idea and seeing all of those actually be implemented through the software and the company saves 10 million a year or something from it. It was a really cool place to work and yeah, positive company.
So then doing that and enjoying that, what led to your first sketch that you put up on TikTok?
I always did the voices and stuff like that. I've always done that. And also working from home, I would just do it a lot. I'm quite a weird guy. So I'd be by myself just doing these characters or sketches and making myself laugh. And then I was doing this husky voice posh girl and my mate was asking me questions to answer in character. I think I was doing it with Chris as well on a work call. And he was just dying with laughter. And he was like, oh, so what's your name? And Minty just came out and he found it so funny. And one of my mates just said, why not just post it on TikTok? None of us really used TikTok. We thought it was just 13-year-old girls dancing.
Yeah. Yeah.
People were just starting to do comedy stuff. And so I was like, okay, what's the harm? And so I posted it and it went really well. So I just carried on from there.
And was it the very first post that went really well?
Well, I always leave this bit out. A couple of months before, I'd secretly tried to start a TikTok account because I was seeing on Instagram all of these travel vloggers whose job was to go and stay in 5-star hotels and go fly first class. And I was like, that is the best job in the world. So I'm going to do that. But I hadn't been on holiday. So I was just compiling clips from my trip to the Lake District. It got 10 views. So I posted a couple of them, then deleted the app because I was like, oh, this is just, what am I doing? And then I'd gone back on and I think Minty, Posh Girl at the Afters or something like that was the first one of the actual comedy clips that I'd uploaded and it blew up for what at the time felt like it was massive.
Going from that first post to the moment when you realised that this could be a career, how did the whole thing grow?
It was really interesting. I think that first post did well. And then I did a couple more posh videos. I think I then did a posh boy. And then I immediately was like, oh, this is easy. I can do anything. And started posting more absurd and out there videos that just immediately flopped. And I realized that people liking the posh stuff. So I was like, right, post that and then build up enough of following to then branch out. But build it first, stick with the niche and build that audience. And then when you've got a base audience, a core audience, there'll be a section of that will like the other stuff. And then I think I did the creepy teacher. Then you're reaching new people who may not have been as into the posh stuff, but like this one. And then you build that. And then it was building these different circles and then they all intermingle. So it slowly grew. Then I started doing the brand deals and stuff.
And you were still doing your marketing at that point?
Yeah, still doing marketing. Chris left and went to a bigger tech company called Salonis. So I left because me and Chris were best mates at that point. He brought me along to this new company. And I think it was around working for that new company, I realized I was making enough from social media that I could do it full time, but I didn't want to. At the time, there was a certain thing about having to tell people I was a TikToker full time because they look at you like, ugh. And then I think that seems to be slowly changing, though. I'm still very self-deprecating about it, but people are like, no, it's actually like a valid thing now. And I'm there like, yeah, don't hate me. I kept the job as long as I could because I felt it was important to have that to fall back on and build these positive relationships because social media can be so fleeting. And so I was like, if this all does collapse, I want to make sure I've really left a really positive wealth of experience in that world that I can fall back on. And so I only left when I did Edinburgh Fringe for the first time. That's because it's tough to get a month paid off from a big tech company.
Suddenly, when you're doing really well, then there's the pressure to continue to do really well. Whereas at the beginning, it's just throw stuff out there and it doesn't matter. How does that change how creative you are?
There was a funny little period where I think I got to about 500K followers quite quickly. And then I felt like it halted, and I was still getting good views and stuff like that. But I think I was then forcing it a little bit too much and trying to make a video to make it go big rather than something I found funny. And there was a change when one day I was in one of my weird moods and I just did this improv video, which is what I used to do. Like I was saying with myself, I did this posh family improv. I can't remember what it was. I think I was posh mums on their phone. And I was like, darling, darling, baby, darling, darling, no. And I was like, oh, okay, what would this conversation sound like? And I just filmed it and it was ridiculous. The kid was called Delicatessen and it was about her being in.
Well, I've seen a recent delicatessen one. No, I haven't. I've seen a nepotism one.
Oh, nepotism. Yes. I was after nepotism.
Yes, exactly.
But the delicatessen, and it was really interesting because it was so wacky and so weird. And the editing was really basic and I was laughing and messing up and stuff. And because it was just improv. And I found it so funny and posted it. And people went mad for it. And so I kept doing these improv stuff. And then I did Northern Family Improvs and I shot up to 1 million super quick. And I realized then it wasn't about trying to make a video go viral. It was about making it for myself. What do I find funny? And that's more likely to do well. And it doesn't always do well. Sometimes I'll find something hilarious and it just won't work. And that's fine. But it took the pressure away and was like, actually, this works when you enjoy it. The minute it becomes work, it stops working.
Yeah, I have 2 daughters and they're singer-songwriters. And so they're on TikTok as well and posting. And they say it is so unpredictable. They think, oh, this is really going to go well. And I mean, they're trying hard to build their following. And it's hard. It's really hard. But the stuff that they think, oh, I'll just stick that out there and it's just no one's going to look at that. And that seems to get taken up. And the stuff that they really work hard on is a total flop. So there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it.
It's always the way.
So you attach that, if I'm liking it, then I'll put it out there and just see.
Yeah. It's hard to not, because I think the likes and stuff, it's such a vanity metric. It's hard to not chase that because that's all you're getting. It's a digital screen. You're not seeing, like on stage, you see how people react. Whereas when you just see the likes, it's hard not to rely and chase that little serotonin rush you see when it hits like 1 million views or a certain amount of likes. But I still sometimes find myself making something that I think is going to get big, but then I always fall back and come back to like, no, I'll make a video. And if I'm laughing at it, I'm like, okay, this is good then. This is fine. And even if it doesn't do well, there'll be a certain amount of people that will find it really funny and I'll feel good about it because I'm a fan of that.
So how do you structure your days now? It seems like you're posting every day. I don't know how you're managing to do that because it takes a long time. You've got to think of the idea. You've got to film it. You've got to refilm it so you get it right and then editing it. That's a lot of work. So how do you structure your days to get what you want to get done?
It's really interesting because there's so many meetings and then I have auditions and then at the moment it's tour, obviously. I never really have a day that just looks the same. And so it is interesting because I've been asked that question a lot, like, what does your day-to-day look like? I don't really have a day-to-day because I'm often out and about. In terms of getting videos done, whilst I'm on tour, my posting has been a lot less. In TikTok, recent views have struggled because TikTok punishes you if you don't post regularly. But I know they're good videos because on Instagram, they'll fly. For me, it's a case of not just posting for the sake of posting. If I don't have a good idea, or if I don't have the energy to make it funny, I'm not going to post it because you're more likely to lose followers and damage it. If you just post something rubbish, people will see like, oh, why am I following this guy? This is a rubbish video. That one that I liked before was funny, but nah, unfollow. Whereas if you're just not posting, no one's going to search my name up and be like, he hasn't posted, I'm unfollowed. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. But yeah, with a video, it's just as and when I find time. I've always got a notes app in my phone of ideas. Some of them are ridiculous. What's the recent one? I've just got a notes app of ideas and I'll always make sure I go to the gym and then do all meetings. And then when I have an hour, I'll just sit down and try and record a bunch of videos and then watch them back. And if any of them are worth it, I'll post them. But there is no day-to-day structure.
Okay. And actually, that doesn't take that much time then. I would have thought, because I'm being someone who would never, ever be able to post something like that. And I'd have to really think about it and I wouldn't be able to be spontaneous. So I think, wow, that takes a huge chunk of time. But actually, you can just do it. And if it works, you're done.
Yeah, I think some of them are longer than others. Branded videos are longer than others because you tend to have to script them. I like to improv. because that's when we'll just come out with the most ridiculous things. And that's when I make myself laugh, because I'm like, mine is very much character led. So a lot of people do concept led stuff, and it's the concept that's funny. Whereas I'll take quite a basic concept, but it's all in the character. And so if I'm really in this character, it's then like what comes out. And so I really like the improv. But yeah, there's some where it needs to be scripted because that's where the humor is. I did one where Love Actually Prime Minister's speech, if it was real life. And I had to script that one out and find the music. I did a Keira Knightley one, and like it's editing, all of that stuff. So some of them do take longer, but I would say the basic Soho House guy is putting on a hat, recording for 10 minutes, and then 5 to 10 minutes editing, basically.
One of the many things I think is really lovely about your sketches is that some comedians attack certain parts of the community and they get their humor by being cruel. And even though you're making fun of people, it's very gentle and we can all see our frailties in what you're doing, but you don't make us feel belittled by it in any way. Do you ever get anyone's opinion before you put them out?
If I'm unsure about something, I'll send it, say, to my girlfriend or to my agent. I'll be like, what do you think of this? Is this funny? Is this worth posting? There's only one video that I've made that I didn't post because I thought it would cause offense. And I don't think it is offensive, but I could see how people could take it. I'm not going to say what it is because out of context it would sound bad. But I think for me, I will never post anything that I can't defend with my whole heart. So if I post something and someone's like, it's not okay to say this, I would have posted that in full confidence, knowing that I'm not being offensive, or I can defend where I'm coming from with it. Absolutely. And so a lot of the northern jokes or the posh jokes and stuff like that. And then even in the stand-up, there's a couple of more risky jokes, but the humor is always pointed towards the person who thinks that rather than that's where the joke is. And so, yeah, I'm very careful with that because it's not my style to sort of be edgy, offensive comedian.
Just want to run through a couple of your characters, but my favourites, of course. So creepy teacher, I think actually everyone loves who is closest to them. So I was a teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And hopefully I wasn't a creepy one, but who knows? I'm not going to know that, am I? In our family, we can't say actually anymore without actually. And I do know that when I was teaching, I thought, well, what was the word I used to use? And you do use these filler words, which are just so useless and rubbish. Was that a real person? Was that one person, or was that just a mix of people that you took?
It was a mix of different teachers. I don't even know where it came from. I think it started with the it's that weird sound that the universal
Year
teacher
7.
Yeah, year 7. No, actually. I think that actually is birthed from this. It's like everything they're saying is well, that's not okay. Like some sort of surprising counter argument that they're always like, no, actually, you think that's okay, actually, when it's not, actually. I think that's where it comes from. But yeah, it's an amalgamation of all teachers. And then a few of my old teachers have come to see the show. They've been like, oh, God, is this me?
Yeah. I have to admit, because I write a bit, and one of my teachers in this latest book is inspired by that. So he's got lots of actuallys in his speech. So I hope you don't mind. I will credit you.
What's the book?
It's for teenagers. It's a mystery. It is yet to be published. So we will see. But
that's brilliant.
But it's a mystery set on Dartmoor, which is where I came from. And it's a series.
I love mysteries. That's so cool.
Well, it will be really cool for me if it gets published. We'll wait and see. But yeah, anyway, one of the teachers in there will be instantly recognizable with the actually.
That's amazing. I love that.
Okay, Minty. So was Minty the posh girl with the vape and on the chairlift looking for the neige and après and pre? Was she an individual?
She is a mix of 2 to 3 people. So I studied English. And in my first ever lesson, there was this girl with just this really husky voice. And I was like, she lost her voice, but week in, week out, she just sounded like that. And I was there like, oh my God, this is just how she is. And there was so many of them, just like constantly lost voices. So that husky voice thing, I just kept noticing it. And then 2 of my friends, Sophie and Polly, Sophie's very much like, guys, where's my vape? Where's my vape? Oh my God, someone's stolen my vape. And then she was sat on it. So that actually happened. I made the video the next day. I made the video the next day and she was there like, she calls me Rowley. She was like, Rowley, what the fuck? I was there like, sorry, Sophie, and she loves it. She's great. She's a really, really great person. So she found it really funny. And then Polly, my friend, Polly's always going, no, 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 guys, wait, what are the boys saying? Guys, no, 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 no. And when I first started Minty, no, 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 guys, was like a bit of a catchphrase in the early days. So yeah, it sort of comes from all of that.
Yeah, well, there's so many that you do. There's that soft boy with his woolly hat, and there's reacting to gossip early. You've got the aspiring musician, Soho House snob, and I've come across some of those. But it's one thing to post online and to get your following that way. It's quite another to stand up in front of an audience and put yourself out there. And I interviewed Ingrid Oliver. She had a comedy show called Watson and Oliver, and she talked about stand-up, and she did comedy sketches with her partner. She talked about one particular instance when she just started, and the guy before her went on stage and someone in the audience took a dislike to him and just stood up and annihilated him. All he could do was just creep back into the wings and quietly die. And she said, he survived and he actually went on to do quite well. But stand up, beyond all other types of performance, acting, singing, dancing, whatever, people can be really nasty if they don't like you. So that's quite a brave move. So how was your first stand-up show?
I've had really nice audiences. Don't get me wrong, I have died on stage a million times.
Have you?
Oh, yeah, it's what you don't realize. Even the top comedians, what happens is you get so used to dying that it's not awkward. And at first, you have to go through it so many times that you're sort of numb to it. And then now, if I'm having a really bad set, you can call it out. And if you're relaxed, the audience will then relax. And all they want to do is feel like you're in control. So even if the joke's not working, like if I go and do a 10-minute set and it's not quite working, you've got enough good stuff that you can fall back on if you need to. But even the top comedians, if they're building out a show for a tour, the only way to test if new material is funny is to do it on stage. And oftentimes you find that a lot of it isn't funny. And so you'll see and you'll speak to people. And it's like, when building out a tour, you do these new material nights and you do just flop. It's really interesting because we've got a top secret comedy club in London, which is amazing for these new material nights. And it's a chance where you pay £2 and you can see Jack Whitehall or Ricky Gervais. But they will come on and be like, right, I'm testing some stuff. Might be rubbish. And sometimes it is, but it's great because they're more relaxed with it. Sorry, I've forgotten the question. I'm just yapping away.
No. It doesn't really matter. I actually forgot what the question was as well. But it was your first stand-up when you first did it. I would imagine that's terrifying.
It was so scary. And I wasn't doing sketches. So I went to this gig called The Attic in Southampton. And I wrote this 10-minute set. And I was practicing it literally right here where I'm sat. I was stood up. And I had in my head all of these movements I was going to do. And I was going to come on and be so confident. And I went and just stood, held the microphone, stock straight, and just spoke faster than anyone's spoken before, didn't pause for any laughter, and just raced through it. I was so proud because it was such a rush and everyone was so nice. All the other comedians on the bill were really supportive because it was awful. But they were all like, mate, first time you absolutely smashed that. Like, seriously, like, well done. I've got the video somewhere. I need to watch it. I've not watched it since. I need to watch it back. But it was probably awful, but it was just such an experience. I was so nervous and I was crap.
When you die on stage, like you were just talking about, what happens? You just freeze?
Just no one laughs and you just carry on. Just no one laughs. And so you just got to do these bits. I did a gig in Brighton and I was the headline act, which I really didn't like because I was a headline act because of the social and because I can sell tickets. But the other comedians are a bit like, oh, fuck off. This TikToker
Really?
thinks he's a stand-up. And so I turned up, they nailed their sets and the crowd was really nice. So it wasn't just a tough crowd, it was me. And I came and I was trying out new material. And again, you don't really try out new material for the headline acts. And so came to this Brighton gig to this amazing crowd and the atmosphere was electric, really good energy in the room. And I just flopped. It was the first real death I had on stage. And I had this tube sequence, which I actually need to do at some point because I think it's brilliant. It's this whole tube bit. And every time I'd done a show in London, I would always have this 5-minute tube bit just because I knew it was solid. And even if the rest of the new stuff didn't go down well, I would either start on the tube or finish on the tube. And so it was enough.
Yeah.
And even that just really died. And it's a very expressive, big thing. And so I'm jumping about and screaming, doing all this stuff and these actions to no laughter.
Oh, that's awful.
I was there like, thank you so much, guys. I've been Henry Rowley. And there's just a soft smattering of applause.
Oh.
Luckily, the MC was hilarious. So he came and he did an extra 5 minutes just so the night wasn't a total flop. He's called Paddy Young. Really funny guy. Really lovely guy. Before I went back to London, I took myself off far away from the club for a solo pint and just soaked it in. But it made me feel almost invincible after. There was something weirdly enjoyable about it. I don't know what it is, just being so far out your comfort zone and being like, wow, I've done that now. That was literally facing the biggest fear of stand-up. Well, I've experienced it, so you literally cannot get worse. And it makes you more fearless going into it the next time.
Are you quite good at putting that to one side and moving forward? Or are you someone who holds on to that?
I will hold on to it short term and catastrophize and then get over it very quickly. So I'll have a 2 hour long meltdown and then I'll be like, oh no, it's actually fine, move on. It's really funny. I'm really all heart in the moment. With the show that I'm touring, it's the first show I've done where I personally really, really find it funny and think it's good. I think I've always been very self-deprecating and the first person to say, no, this is rubbish. You might hate it. You'll probably hate it. Whereas with this show, I genuinely find it really funny. And so weirdly, what that means is if someone else doesn't, and I'm sure there are people who come to the show and it's not for them, it doesn't bother me because I'm like, oh, well, it's just a different sense of humor. Not everyone is going to find you funny. There's going to be some people that just have a very different sense of humor. And so it's a really nice place to be because I'm like, no, I really enjoy this. And so it's really, really nice. I don't worry if people haven't enjoyed it as much.
Well, my daughters and I came and watched it at the weekend on Sunday. And as I said, we just loved it. And your ability to change characters, and you're changing your voice, you're changing your posture, you're changing your movement. I mean, you're moving a lot. That's quite a workout that you have up there, but it's so impressive. And it's not just us saying that, because for your Just Literally tour, you've had rave reviews and it's triumphant. Rowley's a powerhouse performer. It's a joyful watch, a sheer joy to watch. To us, it was flawless. So what did you change to make it the polished show that it is today?
A lot of it is stage presence. That only comes with doing it. And at the start, because it was so scary each time, I wasn't doing it enough. And every comedian was like, the more you gig, the better you'll get. No two ways about it. And I just wasn't gigging enough because it was easier not to, because it was uncomfortable, because each time was new material. But one of the key changes was I was doing these bi-monthly nights called Henry Rowley and Friends, where I would do a 20-minute set of new material. And this was when I was trying to build my Fringe show. And then I'd have 3 guests. This was when I was just doing not sketch, just straight stand-up. And it was fine. It was good stand-up, but it wasn't mind-blowing. And it was nothing to do with what I do online. And so every time I would sell tickets because people were coming from social media, but I could just feel them leave being like, yeah, it was good. But like none of what we see online, there was none of that. It was just a guy who we love his videos, just doing random stand-up. And I think I've realized that people are coming for a reason and I need to give them some of that. And my strength in any of the stand-up sets was when I was doing characters. And so the promoter who'd spotted me at Fringe the year previously doing a 15-minute set was like, yeah, I think you should do sketch. I wanted to prove myself as a stand-up. And then after 6 months of it, I was like, maybe I should try sketch, and transformed into doing that. And that was when I really was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm good at, and really lent into it. And then it was a case of leaning into the absurd as well. With sketch, there's so many places you can go, as you've seen.
Yeah.
I think that was a big change.
Having done this tour, how many shows in total?
I did, since August, I've done about 50 something because I did Fringe as well.
Okay.
So the tour's been 20 and Fringe was about 30.
Do you still get nervous?
Yes, especially for like Alexandra Palace, I was nervous for, and Richmond Theatre, which is the final one, and everyone I know is going. I'll be nervous for that. I do still get nervous, and I think if I don't, it worries me more because then it's like you don't care. The nerves is really good, but now it's less of a world-ending nerves and it's excited adrenaline nerves. My process, so there's the 3 Bs, which is beers, bananas, and bars. So I have a banana, a beer and a breakfast bar before I go on.
Okay.
I don't always have a beer, but for the tour, most of the time I will, unless I'm hungover or something. And then I stand in the wings, and something which, if I'm really nervous, I'll look at the back where my name is projected onto the back. And I just think this is the coolest thing in the world. And it really grounds me. It makes me think, stop being nervous. That's your name. That's unbelievable on a stage. This is the most fun thing in the world. There's nothing to be nervous about. And it makes me enjoy it. So that's the key thing for me. Just every time it makes me smile. And I think not to get over my head and ruin it by being nervous and being like, I'm scared. It's like, no, you're so lucky to be here. So appreciate it. And I think that really helps.
Okay. And along with this extraordinary success that you are enjoying comes that poison chalice, which is fame. And on that aeroplane that we caught on the way back from Nice, there were, well, obviously I was super excited that I got to meet you. And then there were, I think, a group of schoolgirls who just fell apart that you were on the plane. And you were really lovely to them. You sort of waved, you were really amiable, and lots of people wanting to talk to you. And you were really kind. I could see you were chatting and being lovely to everyone. How are you coping with that side of things?
I really enjoy it, to be honest, because I think coming from social, you have fame, which is recognizability, but you're not a celebrity because people recognize you're just a guy in his living room shooting videos. And so there's none of the intimidation, or you do get some people who are there like, most of the time, people come at you on the same level.
Yeah.
They just come and say like, oh, hey man, I really like your videos. Whereas if you see a celebrity, it's like, oh my God, I love this person. And it might be quite a lonely fame, I imagine. Whereas coming from where I've come from, it feels very nice. You don't get this, I can't go anywhere. Like the recognizability is great because people just being like your videos, man. Or like, maybe, do you mind if I get a picture? And it's just very easy and lovely and everyone's very nice. So I really, really enjoy it.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I haven't had any overbearing fans yet.
Some. On the tour, there's a lot of gropey mums.
Really?
And sometimes you have to step away because I can't be mean or nasty because everyone's paid for a ticket to come to my show. But sometimes we'll be like, yeah, you got the picture, thanks. And sort of.
Oh, that's a bit nasty.
Yeah, it's quite funny. But there is some people who really are super fans. They're so fun because that's, to me, mind blowing. But what was really funny on that plane, sorry, I'm yapping, but.
No, it's so nice. It's just great.
Next to me, there was an F1 driver.
Oh, was there?
He kept looking at me like, what the fuck?
And he was a little bit like, into him.
Who the hell are you? Like, he was not a big F1 driver, but he was in for like half a season or something. And I recognized him and I was looking at him. He had no idea who I was, but he saw the girls and he was like, what the hell is going on? Like,
what about me?
Yeah.
You seem so grounded. And I know it's early days at the moment. How do you stay grounded?
For me, if I ever found myself losing myself in something like that and becoming not grounded or becoming arrogant, I would take myself out of it because no matter what, the most important thing is maintaining yourself and your friendships and your family connections. And I think people around me, it's nice because they're people I can always be myself around. I've got really good friends, really good family, a wonderful girlfriend. They don't see this as them like, oh my God, you're amazing. I'm just still Henry. And I think when they're the people you're seeing day to day, it's really nice. You're not surrounding yourself with people who are just being like, wow, everything you do is special. It's surrounding myself with people who are just the same I've always been. And I think my mum would kill me if I ever started to become arrogant or anything like that. She'd give me a Paddington hard stare.
And looking ahead, because this tour finishes at the end of November, and then you're going to take this nice break, go on holiday, which you're going to need at the end of all of this. If you look to the next 5 years, what would you like to have accomplished?
This is going to be such an annoying answer, but I've never, ever set myself long-term goals because if 5 years ago, where I am now wouldn't have been the goals I would have set myself, I may have turned down certain opportunities trying to achieve something else because I've set that long-term goal. So for me, it's more just continue going where I'm going and take all the opportunities. And as long as I'm enjoying it and it's going well, I'll continue doing it. One thing that I've always wanted to do, and I will continue to pursue, is acting. That's the only long-term goal. But I don't want to be rigid and say 5 years I will have this, because I think for me, the joy of life, and for a wanky phrase, the journey, it's the spontaneity. And things like stand-up was just a spontaneous thing. And I thought, fuck it. The worst that happens is I'm awful at it. And now I'm doing a tour and it's been the most amazing thing in the world. So yeah, I quite like not knowing where 5 years is going to be, or just going along for it. And it seems to be working out so far. So I'm going to try to continue that.
Keep going.
Yeah.
And in terms of the acting, is that film acting, TV, theatre, serious, comedy, anything?
So film and TV, definitely. I would say 95% of the roles I'm auditioning for are serious, but I would love to do comedy as well. My worry is that if I started out comedy, I would become a comedy actor. I would love to do serious, not that it's not proper acting, but serious drama, stuff like that. But I would also love to be a comedy actor. I think that would also be so much fun. So I'm not saying no to it, but everything really. But mainly film and TV, I think, is more suited to my style, funnily enough.
Have you had someone mentoring you along the way, or is there a comedian who you look up to in particular?
I've had two directors who have been amazing. So I had Deck Monroe for The Fringe and then Elf Lyons for the tour. And they have been real comedy mentors, really supportive in all of my moments of crisis, because I catastrophize and think I'm the worst thing in the world. And they're very good at dealing with that. So I message them like, oh my God, this show is awful. I breathe. They're like, how did it go? I'm like, yeah, really great. It's amazing. They've been amazing. I look up to Jack Whitehall, obviously, and he's supportive, and he shared my Fringe show, and I've spoken to him a couple of times online, trying to get him to my show, and he's probably like, piss off and leave me alone. But he's been very nice, always replies and says, I'll try to come. And some random little guy being like, hi, Jack, do you want to come to my show?
Why, not so random anymore.
Yeah. I think Elf and Deck have been real mentors. And then other than that, it's just all these different comedians in the circuit who are the most amazing comedians in the comedy circuit. They're like huge names, but because they're not on social or on TV, people don't tend to know them. But just speaking to them and getting advice from them throughout the process has been really good, because they've seen me from being awful to sort of being able to put on what I think is a pretty good show. And so it's been really fun and giving me different bits of advice. Yeah.
And is there any piece of advice that you could give to others? And that could include my TikToker, singer-songwriter daughters, a standout piece of advice that you could share?
For me, it's always just enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, what's the point? No matter what you're doing, whether you're trying to pursue TikTok or whether you're just working day to day, like if you're not having fun, this is your life. And that doesn't mean delve into hedonism and some sort of drug-fueled orgy or anything. But
no.
My job at Sideways 6, some days I'm like, oh, I can't be asked to go to work today. It's cold and I have to get up early and working on projects. But overall, I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed being at work and I enjoyed the work I was doing. So I think that's what you're going to get out of life, because you're never finished. You're never there. This image you have in your head of what life needs to look like, it's never done. No matter how successful you get, you never reach it. And if you do, it's probably the most depressing thing in the world, because you've got nowhere else to go. So you're never there. So just enjoy what you're doing. I think that's the most important thing, to be honest, above anything else.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice. I think I was actually giving that exact piece of advice to my daughter yesterday.
Amazing.
So there you go. Like, so now she's not going to listen to me. So she only will listen to you.
Listen to Minty.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the hardest thing about being you?
I really wanted to make a dick joke then. My immature comedian mind. The hardest thing about being me. God, that's a real question. Wow, that's a real tough question. What is the hardest thing about being me? I think it's hard, but it's also led to everything being good. No, actually, no, that's not the hardest thing. That's probably the funnest thing. Okay, this is probably unnecessarily deep, but I sometimes can feel very lonely in general. And I think I always have. And I'm not lonely. I've got wonderful people around me. But I think because I'm such an intense overthinker, there is often that sense of loneliness. But I will say recently, I haven't had that. It's something that's been there throughout my life, but I do feel I've been very content recently, and I'm not quite sure what it is. I think it's a validation thing. I'm calling it loneliness, but I'm thinking it's this need for validation. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because what it means is you're nice to people and you get to really know people. And then it's led to me doing comedy and TikTok and all of that wonderful stuff. So it's actually a good thing, but I think it's exhausting.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't like my comedy or my TikToks, I don't mind. If someone doesn't like me, it tears me up. I don't know why. But I think like, no, please. And I'm sure there are people out there who are like, this guy's so annoying, or ugh, can't stand him, which is fine. And it should be fine. So I would say that I don't think I can handle it. If I know that someone doesn't like me as a person, I just can't live with that. Probably that.
If I was asked that question, I would say the same thing. In fact, there was a thing which I read on Instagram, and it said the 3 most important things to happiness is 1, don't look back, no point in regret. 2, don't worry about the future. Most of your worries don't materialize and it's just a waste of time. And the 3rd one is don't rely on anyone else for your happiness. It has to come from within. Well, I think I personally fail on all 3 of those points.
Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about is the 3rd one. And that's hard because it just makes you very vulnerable. So it would be lovely to just have that knowledge that you're fine, which you are fine. And it's just remembering that. I find that incredibly difficult as well.
My friends would laugh at this. Benny calls me Mr. Positive. I'm insufferably optimistic. I think there is something wonderful about that vulnerability, though, because it means you really care about the connections you form. And so me saying it is difficult, but I think if we were then to have this stern and be like, I don't care what other people think, I'm only me, you'd lose that empathy and you'd lose those deep connections that you form and the relationships you have. My mates would be laughing. They're like, mate, just take something without trying to put a positive spin on it. That's probably the hardest thing, is how insufferably optimistic I am. Yeah.
Is there a question that I haven't asked you that I should have asked? That's a Stephen Bartlett question.
Is it?
I think it is. I'm just saying it and I thought, oh, I sound like him asking that.
It's a great question.
It is a good question.
Because I don't know him personally. That sketch is a bit of fun. And I got worried because I saw the standard review, and it's a lovely, lovely review, but it was like the waspish send out for Stephen Bartlett. And I worry he'll see it and be like, oh my God, this guy's just rinsing me. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. He's brilliant at what he does.
It was gentle. It was instantly recognizable when you did it. It was like, yes, that's right.
I think he would find it funny. In my head, I think if he saw it, I think he'd laugh.
Yeah.
So that is a brilliant question, though. A question you haven't asked me, which you should. I'm not gonna lie, I think you've asked wonderful questions, to be honest. Is there a question you haven't asked me which you should?
Was there anything that you would like to talk about, that you'd like people to hear about, that we haven't covered?
I don't think there is a question that you should have asked me that you haven't, to be honest. And I think that's a compliment to your questions. You're a very good interviewer. It's been really fun.
Oh, that's so lovely of you. Gosh, well, thank you.
I've done a lot of these podcasts and everyone's good at what they do, obviously. But it's very natural and it's been very fun. And I've been yapping so much because it's been a very lovely conversation. So I will say you're a fantastic interviewer.
Oh, my gosh. Well, there you are. That's so lovely of you.
A question you should always ask anyone. How are you?
Yeah.
That's it. How are you?
And how are you today?
I'm great. After this conversation.
I have been looking forward to it since I met you a few weeks ago, and that was very fortuitous for me. We are laughing constantly at your sketches. My daughters are 24, 22, and my son is 19. And there are various stages where you don't have so much in common. And sometimes I find I'm scrabbling for things to talk about. But if I can have a Henry Rowley sketch and say, look at this, it's a really lovely thing to do. And it does soften everything. And so thank you so much for that. Thank you for agreeing to talk to me today. And good luck with everything. I mean, I'm so excited about your career. I shall be watching it very closely, and you deserve huge success. And I am sure you will have it if you choose it.
Thank you so much. I've had a lot of fun in this conversation. It was brilliant. And thank you for your kind words.
No, thanks, Henry. You've been listening to Bandwidth Conversations. Thanks to Anna B, Head of Marketing, to all of the podcast consultant, to Bagawire for the music, to the Money Maze podcast. Thank you for listening. Any feedback, please email me, katie@bandwidthconversations.com. Please sign up on our website, www.bandwidthconversations.com, so we can notify you about new podcast releases. We hope to see you again soon.